You want to take this one?
Okay, so it's about speaking up. There's so many different aspects, and this. So this is a deep topic.
Yes.
This is a workshop in and of itself. This topic of speaking up. Okay. I'll relate it to my experience. What because before I could definitely put myself in the camp of the people who did not speak up, even though there was something I wanted to say.
Mm-hmm.
And what really helped me was at the end of the day, it's really a purpose of if I don't share it and it's something that I see as a potential problem or something important, then why not? I mean, and the value of expressing myself and speaking up. That's habit one for me. Being able to make the active choice to share what I needed to share. That's
right.
What's first coming to mind as I see the phrase of speaking up. And there are so many different situations and things that we can tackle about this.
Right. And you're right, Lippy. There are so many ways that we can look at this. There are so many discussion points. And I like how you put it. It could be a workshop in and of itself. I was tempted to go back to the 7 habits, and I think eventually we will. But a thought came to mind. Very often people talk about the 5 levels of why, for example. And I think for this one, while this is probably not a thing, for me, a thought that came to mind is there are at least 4, maybe 4 or 5 whats that we can ask when it comes to speaking up. And the first one would be about what? What is it really that we're either thinking of or we're being called to speak up about? And that alone has some dimensions to it. So I'll just cite perhaps the most important ones, which is sense of clarity. Because sometimes we're told, speak up, magsalita ka naman. But then the question becomes, do we even know what we're being told to speak up about or asked to speak up about? Is there that sense of clarity? And I'm saying this because in my own experience, especially when I was much younger, I could have been attending, say, a campaign pitch or maybe a review of a storyboard. And then my boss might go, speak up. What are your thoughts? And in my head, I was thinking, where do I even start? What am I supposed to talk about? And am I supposed to talk about these minor details, the colors here and there? Am I supposed to talk about the story? Am I supposed to admit that I don't understand what on earth is going on in this whole campaign? So there's that. There's the first level of what am I being called or what do I want to speak up about? Second is for what? For what end? What is the purpose of me speaking up? Is it simply to be heard? Or is it because I actually have a deeper purpose or maybe a mission, so to speak? Is there something that I'm pushing for? Is there something that I'm fighting for here? And I think this second what often becomes the tripping point. Sometimes when people are asked to speak up about something, I think that the people who remain silent, and like you, I was part of this camp. I have been part of this camp long ago, and sometimes I remain in this camp. And I think what keeps people in the camp of the quiet is that very often they don't feel a strong for what. There's no strong purpose to it. They feel like, okay, I'm just going to speak up because I'm being told to speak up. But if there's a strong enough why, therefore for what, I think people will be more inclined, more inspired to speak up. And then the last 2 questions that I have in mind are perhaps questions that will allow us, particularly the more timid ones, the ones who may not want to speak up all the time. These may be good questions for us to ask ourselves when we're in that, when we're sitting on that fence, when we're wondering, do I go here and keep quiet? Do I go here and speak up? Maybe the first question is, what do I stand to lose if I don't speak up? Is there anything that I'm going to lose? Like, will my voice not be heard? Or let's say we're talking about a project. Let's say the theme for a Christmas party or a New Year's kickoff. Will I feel bad if later on it goes another way? Will I end up thinking, ay, sana nagsalita ako? Because if you can imagine yourself feeling that, then I perhaps would suggest try leaning towards the speaking up more. Because I think there's much more to lose in feeling regret, which then brings me to the last question, which is, what do I stand to gain if I speak up? And here I can imagine all sorts of positives. So one might be, I stand to gain respect from my peers, from my colleagues, especially if I'm someone who's usually quiet and I speak up and I give a meaningful contribution. That might give me respect. Another one might be a much more practical one, which might be I get to influence the way things are done, or I get to influence the way things go. So again, for what? It's about what? For what? What do I lose? What do I gain? If I don't speak up, if I speak up.
Well, now what's coming to mind after you telling me that is, but that's from the perspective of someone who wants to speak up. What if I'm the person who wants the people in my team or the people in
Speak
my
up.
group to speak up?
Ooh.
And one tip that comes to mind is it's also to be mindful of how I'm setting the environment. Because
Yes.
one reason why people might not be speaking up, and this was a situation of me before, was I'd shoot down every idea that they had on, like, hey, that won't work. How we tried that before, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So and because people feel like no one's listening to them,
Right.
eventually they learn to, oh, why should I speak up? Because this person's not going to listen to me anyway. So it's also being mindful of the environment that we are influencing and that we are setting up. There's
Right.
research about this. If you want to Google, actually it was Google itself who ran that study, Project Aristotle, and Project Oxygen. So they set out to research what makes great managers,
Yeah.
and how to make an effective team. And one element is encouraging behaviors to allow people to feel safe enough to speak up without that being counted
Right.
against them. And that's also a workshop in and of itself that we have. And just being mindful also of how I respond to people, and how I share my opinion, and how I invite people to also share can
Right.
also influence how people speak up at the end of the day. It might not be as easy. Okay, so I
Agree.
remember my saying, what about in the real? In the real world, this can be something difficult because
Right.
it's something that's been that people have learned as office culture. It could be something that's out of my control. It could be something that I've experienced growing up, and all of these different reasons. But at the end of the day, you're right. It boils down into the, what if I have to gain? What's the value of me speaking up? I remember a boss of mine telling me, Lippy, if you go to a meeting and you're not contributing anything meaningful, don't go to that meeting anymore.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, just send me an email.
Right. No, but I like again how you pointed us to the other side, because there is that side of, and I've been there. It can be frustrating to be maybe a leader, a supervisor, a manager, even a colleague, and to want to hear from even a friend. And I'm sure all of us have had that experience where you sort of want, uy, magsalita ka naman. And
that's the next episode. Let's invite a boss or two people boss, and let's invite staff people, and let's have them talk about this
Yeah.
with these purposely vague topics that JVic's throwing at us.
But I like how you put it there, Lippy. And I think there is a point which you already mentioned, which is to my mind, one of the pillars of coaching, which is creating a safe space. And I think that's important for people to speak up. I think we've been, what's the word? We've been programmed, or we've been taught somehow that speaking up is all about bravado, machismo. It's about courage and bravery.
Especially
about,
in this Asian,
Yes.
Philippine Asian setting of ours, right? Our other counterparts across the world might not
Agree.
have that specific concern, but especially here in culture in Asia and in the Philippines, this is something that a lot of people, find either difficulty or can find challenging given different circumstances.
Right. And I think, while yes, sometimes it definitely takes courage to speak up, I think if, whether it's the boss or the colleagues or even the family members, allow a safe space to be created, then it doesn't necessarily, it removes that hurdle, because I think that becomes a hurdle.
Mhm.
If the person needs to build up and muster the courage to speak up about something that is, I understand, of course, if it's life-changing. Like if it's something that could potentially get you fired or promoted, or if it's something that could potentially make or break your relationship, then yes, there's a lot of courage involved there. But oftentimes you'll see people not speaking up about much less earth-shaking matters, so to speak. And I think if people don't speak up for much less earth-shaking matters, again, I'll go back to the four
Earth
what.
shaking. I just had a coaching, and
Yeah.
the coaching topic was, I like this colleague of mine. Do I tell her?
Well, again, maybe there's a call to speak up and say, hey. But yeah, to go back, I think one, colleagues, supervisors, leaders, there is that challenge, there's an invitation to create a safe space and to make everyone feel like we all care for one another here, and whatever is spoken here will not be, it may be hard to say completely, it will not be taken against you, but at least it's not going to be thrown back at your face. And perhaps more so as a challenge for supervisors. And I thought about this, admittedly, Lippy, only as you were speaking, which I think is the beauty of these sessions. We sort of bounce ideas off each other. Earlier, I talked about the four whats. And I think the what do I have to lose, what do I have to gain, sometimes will come from the colleagues and the boss. So, for example, if the boss, if the manager, if the leader shows that when you speak up, good things happen. You're recognized, or you influence the way things go, or even I listen more. If, let's say, I were the supervisor, then those are potential gains for most people. And if, for example, you're able to maybe not put it in the face and say, oh, Lipi, hindi ka nagsalita yan. Sorry ka na lang. Maybe it's more of make it clear what they are giving up.
But sometimes, that works. It works to actually put it into, not necessarily put it into people's faces, but present the fact that we're here. Example, we're here to make a decision. If anyone wants to speak up about what we're going to do here, then this is the time to do it.
Sometimes, or forever hold your truth.
Yes, something like that. And I admit sometimes that's a necessary approach to take. Really just let's lay out all the cards and then what. So it's something like that, diba? The speak now or forever hold your peace type of situation.
And I think just to share maybe my parting thoughts on this topic, I think at the end of the day, speaking up is about making a contribution to the discussion, to the conversation. So like we're doing here. For example, either of us might choose to just say, okay, in my head, I like what Lippy said. I'll just shut up. I think he said it all. On the other hand, I might feel like, there's this nice idea that I want to throw into the pot. And who knows, it might spark new conversations. So speaking up is really, to my mind, it's about making contributions. And I think at the end of the day, it's really about gauging. And again, I'll go back to something you mentioned earlier. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind, I guess. Or perhaps at least just imagine, what is the impact I want to make in this conversation? Do I want to make a difference? Do I want to influence it? Do I want to have my say? Then if you do, then speak up. If you want to have nothing to do with the conversation, then maybe, as you said, Lippy, don't even be part of the meeting. Wait for the email. I don't know.
Let's follow that. So there's a follow-up question as we wrap up our session. Yeah. So funny. We're talking about speaking up, and the statement here is, I'm asking for a friend. So what do you do when someone is insistent on making you speak up when you honestly have nothing to say? Even when I've already said that I will share my thoughts when I have any. I don't think it's speaking up that's the real concern here.
No, actually, it may sound funny, but this, I think, in itself is a challenge to speak up for yourself in a manner that can be understood by the other person. Mm-hmm. So maybe, Lippy, let me know what your thoughts are here.
Before I forget, my thought if I was in this situation, I possibly might feel annoyed, and yet I'd be curious, what am I doing, saying, that's making this person think that I have something to say when actually I don't? Because that's feedback for me.
Perhaps.
Maybe it might be my mean face. People told me before I have a mean face. And sometimes when I'm deep, that comes out, and do you have something to say? I'm like, no, I'm just feeling the moment. Maybe, yeah, that's right. It is about speaking up for yourself.
And so I like that. I like the idea of asking. I guess the question there is, what makes you think that I have something to say? Of course, probably said in a friendlier fashion, because that sounds a bit confrontational.
nasabi ko na lahat. And yeah, telenovela type lines. You know, we hopefully don't go there.
Yeah. Well, I guess on my end, so this friend here says that even when I've already said that I will share my thoughts when I have any. So, and before that, there's the phrase, honestly have nothing to say. Then, I guess if I were to find myself in this situation, I'll probably preface what I would say with something like, um, to be frank, or to tell you honestly, right now, I don't think, but there's nothing I don't have anything to add to the conversation. Or depending perhaps on what the conversation is like, how formal it is, it might even be as simple as, I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank right now. Can I share my thoughts?
Or it could go as casual as, are you asking me for my idea or are you telling me to come up with an idea? It could be
that's
that.
A good question right there. Yeah. Or yeah, and I think at a certain point, it's really a challenge to be straight and upfront and say, sorry, right now I don't have anything. Yeah, and I do know how this feels. Sometimes there are some situations where you're backed into a corner and you sort of feel like, okay,
I got nothing.
I got nothing. But
yeah, like
do I shut up? And I've been there. Do I shut up? Look like a fool? Look like I'm not here? Have no value? And of course, these are all self judgments. Or do I speak up for the sake of, which to my mind isn't very valuable either, because you're really just pretty much, I don't know, it's almost like lip service.
This all depends on the context of where and when and how this situation is happening. Because if this is something that you're being asked to speak up, but then you were tasked to prepare something, right? That's a totally different story versus I just want your opinion, but I got nothing to say. That's not already been said. That's on the table. So, it really depends on the situation, I feel.
So, funnily enough, as you were saying that, Lippy, that it does depend on the context. And I think, and I don't know if you agree with this, but the thought that came to mind is, I think the more important, the more meaningful the conversation and the topic, the more important it is as well for someone to be able to say, you know what, right now I have nothing meaningful to say, or there's nothing I'd like to add. Because if we speak up for the sake of speaking up, then sometimes we just muddle up the conversation with ideas that we don't really have any conviction or we don't have any investment in. We just throw them out there. You know what? It's almost like, okay, so you'll shut up. This is what I'll say. And we don't realize it's going to bring the conversation in all sorts of directions. And then we're like, okay, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah. And listening to the situation plays a big part in how you handle, this. Because now I'm getting flashes of, okay, what do you do when someone is insistent, make you speak up? When you honestly have nothing to say, is this work? Is this personal? Is this someone confessing their love for you? I mean, and again, we go back into listening and what is important. And I think that's bottom line. You what's at the heart of this conversation? If you can express that and have a person also say that, and actually this is what makes this so important and whatnot, then maybe things will go more smoothly.
Yeah, I think your last point, Lippy, was an important one. It's what makes it so important for me to speak up here. Yeah. Because for all you know, it might simply be the person wants to know that you're around. And so it might be as simple as, you know what, I don't have anything to add, but I understood what you said. So it might be as simple as playing back, this is what I heard from you. So if it's about understanding, then I understood you, but I'm not sure what to say here right now. I don't have thoughts to share right now. It might be that. It might be that the person is looking for the affirmation that you're there, that you're present, so to speak.
Looking for an answer to their question.